Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today, we read 3 stories from r/creepyencounters. The following stories may be disturbing for certain viewers. Discretion is advised. Let's begin. Our first story is from DrUrbanLegends. It's all fun and games. So this story takes place when I was a teenager. I was about 16. I went to spend the night at my friend's house. It was Friday night, and we were hanging out, calling our other friends, and watching TV. We ended up falling asleep super late. The next day was Saturday. Saturday morning is an older woman's cleaning day. Since there's not much to do until later that night, my friend's mom woke us up early, telling us that we needed to help clean. I was over at her house so often that I wasn't considered a guest. So, she told us to get dressed and eat something before we go to the store. After we got dressed, my friend's mom sent us to the Walmart that was in another city, gave us some cash for the bus and to get cleaning supplies from Walmart. I always hated the bus. I would rather walk everywhere, because I know there's weird stuff that happens on the bus. We got to the stop and didn't wait until a bus came and we got on. It took us to a downtown station where we would transfer to another bus. There we waited for like 10 minutes to get on the bus. As we got on, we saw this disgruntled man just shooting daggers at us. I told my friend, and I was like, why is this old guy staring at us? We laughed and just ignored it. While we were both boarding the bus, we noticed he also boarded the bus and sat a few seats behind us, where the seat turns to face in. For the whole 15-minute bus ride, we kept feeling him stare at us. We started cracking jokes to each other, saying maybe he likes younger girls, and laughed. We kept making jokes about him to lighten the mood and deflect that we felt uncomfortable with the stares. Towards the end of the ride, he moved closer to us, to where we noticed, and our eyes started bugging out as if we said to each other, "Did you see that?" He was too close for comfort. This old man had a Bill Cosby-like sweater, with the stripes, hair on the side of his head, bald on top, salt and pepper mustache, dirty khaki pants, and dirty scratched-up brown boots. Once the bus stopped, we rushed off and ran to the store. The man also got off at the store stop. Walking through the store, gathering the supplies we needed, we noticed this man was following us through the store. Towards the end of our shopping trip, we were in checkout for a while and hadn't seen the man leave or pass us since we had last seen him in an aisle where the mops are. We started talking about how weird it was that he kept on us. We then started joking about him being a kidnapper just to get the eerie feeling of being stalked off of our minds. We stopped at Subway and grabbed some sandwiches to eat while we waited for the bus to go back to her house. And walking towards the exit, the man was standing there. We passed him like we didn't see him. We sat at the bus stop, out of the store, waiting for it to come for like 10 minutes. This man comes out and stands on the other side of the small plastic structure that covers the bus stop for when it rains. And his phone rings. We already are feeling some kind of way, because the whole situation was creepy, but the icing on the cake was when he answered the phone. This man said in Spanish when he answered, "Estoy acá con dos niñas lindas. Venga y búscame," which translates to, "I'm here with 2 pretty girls. Come get me." And he smiled at us after he hung up. I grabbed my friend and shouted, Crap, I forgot something in the store. Your mom's gonna be pissed if we forget it. And running back in, I walked up to the service desk and told them that there's a man outside that's been following us since we got off the bus and through the store. They called management and the police. The man was gone by the time anyone went outside. My friend's mom had come to pick us up from the store since that happened. After that happened, I never rode the bus again and would rather take a walk, bike, run, or ride from friends. Our second story is from PerpetualConnection. Maybe you'll enjoy my break-in story. I don't think I've ever been anti-gun, but my dad definitely had the Mexican version of a FUD mentality. I bought a Mosin at 18 for under $200 for hog hunting. I actually landed 2 successful trips with that rifle before upgrading, but it was the only firearm in the house when I was 20. I'd moved back in after switching jobs to help out my parents during a financial slump. My mother was working nights, and my father was working out of town. My sister came into my room and shook my arm. I had gaming headphones on. I now almost exclusively play with one earmuff off my ear. She said that there was a monster in the backyard. I was in the middle of a game, so I didn't want to go scoot her back to her bed. I told her to sit on mine until I finished my game. Then I heard it, a loud crack coming from our den area. I took a peek out the window and could just barely make out the shape of a man against the side of our house. I gave the phone to my sister and told her to call 911. She was young, but she knew our address and just needed to tell them that someone was trying to break in. I heard another crack, and it sounded like he'd be in at any second. I grabbed 10 rounds, threw 5 in the Mosin and racked it. I should have posted up in the den, but in my panic brain, I decided to go into the garage and exit out the side door. The door he was working on was our back door. He was in our backyard. I guess I wanted to get him before he got in. He was a dirty, old tweaker mumbling to himself when I got there. I yelled at him to stop. He'd broken my mom's bench and was trying to crowbar my back door with the iron side of it. I guess I'd always thought, well, if I have to use it, at least I have a gun. No, a Mosin is an awful idea for the home. It's big, it's heavy, and overpenetration is a huge problem. My aim was shaking like a leaf. He yelled back without even looking at me. "That woman needs to let me in to get my things." He didn't know where he was or what he was doing. I told him if he broke into that house, I'd shoot him. He said something like, "What the fuck?" And right then, he noticed that I had a rifle pointed at him. His eyes went wide, and he immediately started trying to get me to calm down. We got into an argument about who needed to be calm. I told him to walk back the way he came. We'd shot at cinder bricks and old steel targets that got eaten up by the Mosin, and the steel core ammo I had a large supply of back then because of the abundance of the Eastern European spam cans. I was super conscious of the fact that not only did I not want to shoot this guy at all, but if I had to, I didn't want it to sail him through into the house where my siblings were. I'd shot 2 pigs and maybe a coyote at the time with that rifle, but it didn't prepare me to aim it at a person. I kept my sights on his gut, pelvis, so ideally the round would dig into the ground after him. I was scared of missing. The bolt on a Mosin is hard to work at a range. If I missed, I may as well use a club. Luckily, it never came to that. He scuttled out the backyard door and ended up getting scooped up by the cops a few blocks down. I guess a couple of neighbors had heard us yelling and called too. Cop I spoke to said that we were lucky. He was in and out of jail with warrants on him already. Apparently he had a big knife used to cut carpet on him. I think about that situation a lot. He didn't care what I had to say until he saw the gun, or dropped that hunk of iron for that matter. Maybe he would have been intimidated by a bat, but I wouldn't roll those dice. I think about how I had the wrong tool for the job, how I probably should have had that entire interaction from inside my home through the door that he was attempting to break down. Think about how little knowledge I had about how to use that tool in a defensive capacity. I think about how I'd seen what a 7.62 by 54 does to a pig at 70 yards, and how lucky that bastard is to not have been point blanked with it. Think about how my interaction ended peacefully and won't get reported as a statistic. Since picked up a Hawk 982 and a Glock 19 for the roles. I have training, thousands of rounds behind both. I hope I never have to use them, but they're there. Our last story is from Accomplished Ad. Stalked while camping. This is the most terrifying thing that I have ever experienced. This happened 4 years ago, when my boyfriend and I were still sort of fresh into the relationship. My sister had recommended me a snorkeling trip for a fun thing to do with him. It was this quarry surrounded by a campground that is filled with water. It's known for its crystal clear water and its diving. There's apparently a helicopter and school bus that people dive down to see. My boyfriend and I decided to go camping for the night. While we were checking in, we separately both got a bad feeling about this place, but had kept it to ourselves until after we left. So at first, it was a really good time. We snorkeled in the shallowish area of the quarry, and although the deep of the water was a bit uncanny, I was still enjoying myself. The water is 65 feet deep, so once you had swam out of the shallow area, it immediately dropped off and was pitch black. This is actually where I realized that I am terrified of water. Besides the dark deep water while you are swimming, there is something very scary about a lake that is perfectly still. I assume because it is a quarry, the water doesn't have a current. My boyfriend and I are winding down our night, and we're back at our campsite. We're camping in a grassy patch down a hill from the road. Our tent is pitched in a wooded area that our campsite is extended to. Just across the green is a campsite that looks well lived in, but our neighbors were out. We're making hot dogs over the fire when our neighbors get back. It's nighttime now, and they immediately go to sleep. I'd say 20 to 30 minutes after they get back is when things started becoming spooky. My boyfriend and I were chatting when we noticed a dark figure watching us from up the hill. Because of the shadow of the fire, we couldn't actually make out the characteristics of the figure. But we knew he was staring directly at us, almost hiding behind our neighbor's truck. He had watched us for what felt like forever, till he started walking down the road again. We both watched him in dead silence, watching him walk behind the trees. They were the same ones that connected our campsite, but that also went between us and him. I anticipated each time I'd see him walk forward, out from behind a tree. It was a good 4 or 5 he came out from. It wasn't until after this that I noticed he had stopped walking, or was behind the tree still. I was totally freaked out. Where did he go? I watched my boyfriend looking at what happened, thinking the same thing, but he had shrugged it off, and I naively did too. We actually ended up forgetting about it and went to the quarry late night. It was beautiful seeing the stars reflected in the water, but the deep, now all black water was terrifying to say the least. We walked back to our campsite, laid in our tent, and smoked a joint. I soon began to feel an uneasy feeling, which I was trying to ignore, telling myself it's because I was high. After some silence between us, my boyfriend says to me, "Do you feel like we're being watched?" I said, "Why would you say that? half joking, but full serious that I was scared. My boyfriend wanted to get out from the tent, so we're standing by my car. I got this stupid idea that being in the middle of the field that's in the middle of the campground is the safest place for us. My logic being that if someone was going to come up, at least we'd be able to see them. So we're in the middle of this field when we see a similar looking shadow figure from earlier staring at us. He must have been about 20 yards away. We both notice him while walking, and he's walking in the same direction as us. We change directions, and so does he. We tell one another that if we change again and he does too, then we're booking it to my car. When we change, he follows us, and we book it to the car. I watched him from my seat as he slowly walked back into the darkness while still staring in our direction. My boyfriend at this point says to me, "Let's get out of here." I agree, but all our camping gear is outside. We quietly get all our things together, not trying to freak the other one out. The weirdest part of this story, in my opinion, is the next part. My headlights weren't working. There was a weird fog over my windshield that wouldn't go away no matter what we did. We had to drive on the woods with only low beams and a strange fog over the window. We could barely see, but we got out of there. Weirdly enough, the fog went away right as soon as we got to the gas station. We got home around 1 at night. I told my father the story the next day, and he said that he's glad we got out of there, or else we could have gotten murdered. 2 people have died at this campground while snorkeling, which I found out after going back. My boyfriend and I think it was either a person trying to kill us or a Wendigo. We kinda settled on the Wendigo because what happened to us was so unexplainable to us. Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The stories in this video were read, and some may have been slightly altered, with individual authors' permissions. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit posts. Don't let the shadows get too close.